Hey everyone, got something new today. This video is actually about a power feed for my mini lathe, but because it's loosely based on one that I made recently for my mini mill, I'm just going to demonstrate that quickly first. So typically when people get a power feed for their mini mill, they either get a commercial unit that sits on the end here and you take off the handle and it either hangs off, it goes out horizontally and powers that axis. It will have a servo controller and an on-off switch, and it also has cutout switches on either end of the axis here so that it turns off if it reaches the end and you're not around to stop it. The other kind is that people make their own version of that, usually out of a windscreen wiper motor, and generally the same sort of setup, a way to engage it and disengage it, and then cut off switches at either end, and some sort of speed controller. And the last thing people do is they use a cordless power drill like this, with some kind of a fork mechanism that slots into the handle, and they stand there and they go clack, 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 and they use that. Now, I've seen quite a few videos where people made that kind of a system, but you seldom see them actually use them. That's because it's just a bit too goofy to use. And so what I did was I took that idea and I improved it in 2 or 3 ways. Now, one of them was to not use a power drill, but to use a power screwdriver. And the reason for that is they're smaller, more lightweight, smaller battery, and they have these hex fittings at the front, not a chuck. But they do have a variable speed and a clutch. This particular unit is basically the biggest that you'd get. It's very nice, it's not cheap, but because I have these batteries in another tool that you'll often see me use, I went with that and I've been extremely happy with it. It's got plenty of power for all axes and it runs all day on the battery. And the way it works is as follows. So I'll typically come over here, I'll put it up here, and now we see the second key feature of my system. It's really strong, it stays in place. You can just leave it there and you operate it with your thumb. Go the other way. And I can operate that without looking at it. I can just be looking at what I'm doing and just go up and down with that, even very, very slowly or quickly. And then typically I'll move it down to the x-axis, and again it just hangs there. I don't have to hold on to it. And when I'm working on something, I can reach over here and just operate it with my thumb, and I don't even have to look at it. See, I can operate it slowly, fast, flip it over, slowly, fast, take it off, move it up there, and change my tool, and so on, and then move it back here for that. Even better, I can mount it there, and I can use it on that axis. And even better, I can come over here and use it on the other side. Now, as for this issue about hitting the end of an axis and breaking something, that's solved, of course, with this tool as follows. The clutch takes care of that. I don't even have to think about it. You know, typically that's not going to happen, but if it ever does, that solves that. Now, the real key feature of my setup is that I'm not using some kind of a fork system to engage with the handles. I'm using the socket and threaded rod coupler. I take off the nylock nuts on all of the axes. I replace it with a 1-inch piece of threaded rod coupler. Now, to make sure that these things don't come off when you use them, I first cleaned all the threads up so that they're really dry, and I inserted an M8 set screw or grub screw into the end, and I whacked that up real tight. One could use Loctite, but I haven't need to. This has been fine so far. So in my opinion, this is easily the most efficient, most versatile power feed system that you can even make for a Minimill like this. I don't know why everyone hasn't copied this, but there you go. And fresh off using that for my last project, I thought, couldn't I do something similar on the mini lathe? And so that's what this video is about. Let's go see what I did. Now, a lathe is a completely different kettle of fish because we've already got a power feed on one axis down here with the lead screw. People do sometimes make a coupler at the end of the lead screw and then disengage it at this end if they want to make it even slower than it is by default. But that's not been a problem for me, and so I'm just going to leave that all as is. But these two handles here, they are up for a power feed conversion, and so that's what I'm going to look at. The problem I have mainly is that the handle is so close to the axis here that it makes it jerky to use, especially if you've got it set up quite tightly. That issue is even worse here on this one, on the compound, because it's even closer to the axis, and this has to be quite tight. I can't just put a bigger handle on with a bigger sweep because it hits the tailstock. Let's go have a look at the bits and pieces I've made, and then we'll come over here and assemble it again. As with the mill, the core component is a cordless screwdriver, but in this case it's just a 3.6 volt unit, not a 12 volt. That's because the Minimill is a lot smaller, this needs to fit into a smaller space, and it doesn't have to be as powerful as the one on my mill. I did quite a bit of research and chose this unit here. It's called a Bosch IXO. There are other IXO models, but there's only one model that has variable speeds on the trigger. All the others just have an on-off. So the only parts I made for this are these two handles. I'm going to use the stock handle here to screw in, but otherwise this is the only bit I'm replacing. I was able to make this one larger, this is for the cross slide, because there was plenty of space and it wasn't going to hit anything. But the one on the compound, I actually had to make it the same size as it was. I couldn't make it bigger. I did try, but it really didn't work. And so the downside is, whilst on this one I can attach the power drive and the handle just spins around it out there, on this one I couldn't. The handle of course hits the unit. And so the way I actually have to use that one is with this little extender. Not ideal, but that's fine. You know, it's still going to do the same thing. Now the original handles are pinned in with roller pins. I didn't want to use that. I decided to use grub screws. I turned points into them, and so they engage the hole that the roller pin went in, but they can be screwed in much more tightly. If you stick around past this section of the video, I'll show you how I made these. All the machining clips and some music will show up there. There we go, that's all there is to it. Now let's go install this all on the lathe. So let's start with the handle on the compound. There we go. Now this particular rod was also bent, and if you watch the video later, you'll see where I had to pull it out and straighten it up. But it's close enough. There we go. Okay, now this hole is off-center. It's a bit of a pain because I didn't take that into account when I drilled the holes and tapped the holes. But again, doesn't really matter. Basically making it symmetrical. There we go. I'm that much further out from the original. So let's see how that works with the power feed. I would just pick this up, slot it on there, and again my hands are free. I don't have to hold on to it all times. I can do something, come back to it. So let's say we're going that way very slowly. Or more quickly, more quickly, more quickly, all the way up to that. Come back out again. How great is that? Now the other handle is not quite as convenient because of this issue with that hitting the tailstock. It's just too tight, so I've had to leave this the same size as the original. Now because it's all a lot tighter here, what I'm actually doing for this axis is using this little extender, and this little piece just pops off. That gives me lots of extra space here. And so if I was going forwards, making a cut, slowly, quickly, or when I'm bringing it back for the next cut. And as you can see, that's a lot quicker and easier than doing it by hand here. Okay, so now we're going to go in here, there, and we've got plenty of room. Yes, we do. This will go fast. Just brag. Yep. Oh, that's so nice. Couldn't be better. So we've got 6.4. It's so good. Love it. Love it. Okay. All right, there we go. That's Rob's power feed for the mini lathe. If you like anything you saw, please give me a like, subscribe, comment, share the video. Let me know how I'm doing. If you hang around past this section, I'm going to insert all of the machining clips with some music for people who like to watch that sort of thing. And apart from that, we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. So straight off, this handle needs to be further out. Yeah, if I make a longer bar for this piece here, and then tap it to take that handle and cut the hole for the thread and so on, and then it have some sort of hex fitting in the middle, that would work fine. I'm just replacing that bar there. So, and up here, exactly the same issue. I think this is actually smaller than that one. Yes, this is smaller than that one, and so the issue is even more pronounced. So let's pull this off. Yeah, it's just pushed on the end there. Now I can't broach a hole like that, so I'm thinking I don't have a separate piece. I'm thinking that this bit here, this hex piece, would be included in this bit. If I make a new part for this, mill that into it so it's just sticking up somewhere. Right, let's go over to the drawing board and have a think about this. Ta-da! There we go. Call that WAD, wall-aided design. It's not quite a wall, but close enough. I don't know what this is, but it's going to be a lathe handle and power feed adapter next. Oh, it is just shoved on there. So to wrap up this whole design phase, I'm basically replicating the original part of this crossbar with the handle on the end, but it's going to be longer, 80 mil, an extra 10 or 15 mil on both of them. Then I'm going to be leaving a piece on the end here that I'm going to turn into a cylinder so that I can put that in a collet, my hex collet, and so that I can mill the hex into this side here, this piece sticking out. But I realized that having something sticking out there is just going to destroy my knuckles. So to deal with that, what I thought I'd do is tighten up the dimensions so that it's really as compact as possible. What if I made some sort of a flange? As an example, when you put it on, there's a flange there. And when you take it off, there's this flange in the way so that you don't wreck your knuckles on the piece sticking up. We'll cut the end first. Straighten that up. I'll do vertical cuts. Very nice. Pop that off, take that out, pop it in, like that, go like this. Like that. Take it out. Best damn quick change post ever. So simple. So simple. There we go. Let's have a look at the teeth. Let's get some parallels. Probably those. That's how it was. Yeah, so we'll clean that one off. This is going to be basically a centimeter less, so currently it's 70.3. Can't take much off that. How should I take that material out? Bloody hell, that's not very pleasant. Yesterday I made these two, and today I'm going to turn at least the back sides here into a cylinder. So that should be the center. All right, that's one. So that's pretty good. Yep, beautiful. I'll be putting them back in, and then I'll turn off these heads, get them the right length, and then round them off. Okay. Beautiful, just beautiful. So a 6mm hull, but of course if I drill with a 6, I'm going to end up over. So I need to have something smaller. Well, the 6 is 0.2365 in inches. 1564. 0.2344, 1564th. Why does that not look even remotely on center with what I've just done? This happens all the time. It's not even close. It's way off. Oh, God, I can see it going up and down at this end. Oh, terrible. Fucking terrible. Just gonna put a lot of blue around that, so. Yeah. That one's okay. Now, if I did put little grub screws in both sides, it'd be nice to have that thickness, of course. I guess I'd have to make a little tip on them. This would pretty easily power tap, but I'm just not gonna risk it. Very good. That's nice. And slow. That's pretty damn slow. Cool. Look at that is. All right, here we go. Another day. Now, where I left this yesterday was that this piece here is not rotating squarely on this, and it's going like that. And it turns out it's really due to the this end piece is not straight. It's actually bent. Look at that. You can see the movement there. Square it up in here. Definitely over that way. So I'm going to be tapping down there on the edge of that. So I'm not bending anything up here. It's definitely on its way. Very close. Well, it's basically there. It's not quite, but that's extremely close. That's pretty good. I'd say the remainder is simply the bit that I'm off. This one here is not dead center. slightly off to one side. Now, I think you'll watch people sometimes with Sieg lathes trying to make a custom washer or a spacer to fit in this bit behind here to take up any slack. Well, this lets you adjust that slack out of it, because this here is basically a big nut. It's threaded there. You screw it on, and it screws up tight against that. And to hold the nut in place, when it's in the right position, you've got these 3 set screws here. And as you can imagine, as you tighten up a given grub screw onto the thread, the fact that it's a thread is going to make the grub screw sort of move this entire nut off to one side, and all 3 of them do that. And it's a real pain in the butt. And so they get around that by giving you these little brass bushings. It does work, it just takes a little bit of fiddling. It's preferable to tighten it up when it's wound all the way along so that the thread is engaged all the way up to as close as possible to this end, and then set the center point for this movement here. Let's do that. I'm going to go down there. What's the best way I can get down there? Maybe I'll put this on. Do this. It's an opportunity to see if this hits anything. Like, look, it hits my lever. Okay, that's not very good. I made these this long so that I could put these on it, and then I'd only have a mill to spare, and I do only have a mill to spare. It's also going to hit my tailstock and other things, so this may end up taking these out and then moving them inwards to the same size as the original. So it would be like that. And then because this doesn't fit, I would use this little extension instead. And if that was there, that could be there. It's not as nice as having it all the way in because it just adds a little bit of flop, but not really. Just putting that where it feels about right. There's nothing in there. All right, I'm going to go with that. One last little tweak. And we'll go in with the easy tap, all nice and fresh. It's beautiful looking. Got a lot more room, that one. Very good. So I'm going to want to just cut into there, just a slight taper. I could go all the way down, but I quite like the idea of a taper just to give it a little bit of a, well, a bit of a less clunky look. That might work. There. So that cuts right. That's how I want them all to be. Okay, well there's roughly how it's going to look. Need to round those edges. Good. Good, good. Oh god, that hole is way off center. Shit. Okay, back here another couple of days later. Look, this handle here I'm very happy with. I like how that works. And with this thing on there, it's easy to install. Works beautifully. So that's great. The other one here is, it's really too big. I sort of knew it, but I decided I would make it that big and then see how it go. And if it didn't work, that I would shorten it again. And so if I return this back to the original size like that, then I'll just use the extension here for this one. All right, so I'll just put that on, and away we go. That'll do. That surface is not so bright, but the others all seem quite nice. I think to improve upon this, I'd either have to custom fit this a little bit better to that rod, or make a new rod that's straight on the end. I might just ignore that and use it as is. I mean, it works, it does the job. And down here, and so there we go, that's the whole unit, all done.